I'm really aflutter and excited because here in the studio, as promised, we have Keri Bowers with us, and this is me getting to meet her for the first time. Welcome to the show.
I'm so excited to meet you.
I know Nancy Allspot Jackson said I want to meet her. Everybody's very excited that you're here today.
Well, I'm excited at the ironic thing, and this is a metaphor for the world.
Okay.
Is I live 15 minutes
Isn't
away
that
from
crazy?
you. I mean, how did we go so long, right?
Well, and then when I was saying earlier, and I mentioned to you briefly yesterday, that last year when the Miracle Project did a superhero camp at the Thousand Oaks office, my son was in the afternoon camp, but we were filming for both the morning camp and the afternoon camp, and we're talking a small room, like a maximum of 20 people in this room. It was not like a big performance where there are 300 people and you could easily miss somebody. So I was probably sitting 2 seats away from you, and we were even interviewing people, and later somebody said, "Oh, it's too bad you didn't get an interview with Keri Bowers." And I was like, well, yeah, it is too bad, but like, why are you saying that? And they said, because she was here. And I said, what? And I was here in the same room with her and I didn't know it. It was crazy to me.
Well, you know, I want to parlay off that because I see the world in metaphors.
Okay.
I see it in colors. I don't have synesthesia, but you would think that I do, right? As a so-called neurotypical. But that moment when we were in the same room and I was so focused on my role with working with the Miracle Project, and you were so focused on your role of filming and capturing that we missed an opportunity.
Yeah.
And I want to say that is part of the way that when I do one-on-one or I do groups and the art things and the various things that I do, that is very foundational for me to see how do I get to know this individual at a much higher vibration so that so that we don't miss those little things. And yet here we missed it. So
okay. Well, and now it's all come to fruition and you're here, and now I'll know who you are, so that next time if I'm sitting 3 seats away from you, I'm gonna know and say, Keri. But thrilled to have you here, and we need to get into talking about some of the different things that you do, and you do so much, Keri. But obviously, one of the first things we have to talk about is that you are an amazing autism mom. You have a son who's on the autism spectrum, but he's an adult son, which I think is, for me as a parent who has a 13-year-old, you are one of those role models that we all look up to and go, okay, how does somebody get through these years and not just survive, but thrive and feed your kids inspiration and make it happen? You certainly have cleared a swath for all of us to follow a path with the things that you have done with your son.
It's a pretty amazing journey in that respect, being a mother. Back in the day, Taylor's 27, he'll be 28 on Christmas Eve.
Wow.
And there was no internet. There was no magazine or newspaper I could pick up and say, hey, group for moms of unusual, quirky kids.
Right.
I had to I was an artist, and I was also a paralegal working in music law. Mm-hmm. And so I had my traditional gig, but I had to figure out how do I hold a child who also had hypotonia, by the way? But he screams when I hold him, but if I don't hold him tightly enough, he'll fall, right, through my arms. So I began to use the arts early on. But make no mistake, before me, there were very few people, though. Eustacia Cutler, you had Connie Lapin. I mean, you did have some pioneers who I like to think of the Wild West.
Yes.
And they kind of blazed through all of that big bushy stuff to make a basic trail.
Okay.
And then my generation came along and we began to widen the path.
Right.
But it was still unpaved.
Yeah.
And today what we're seeing is metaphoric roads and highways going in.
Yes.
So the opportunities have expanded. But back in the day, I put paint on Taylor's fingertips. I was painting a painting. He was like a floppy doll in my arms. Mm-hmm. And I put paint on his fingertips and grazed them across the canvas. And he hated it. And a voice in my head said, what the bleep are you doing, Keri? Add pejorative.
Yeah.
And the answer came back, I don't know, just keep doing it.
Right.
And I did. And I couldn't tell you today, it was so long ago, whether it was 6 months or a year of doing that he finally began to receive the paint and began to play with it. Mm-hmm. And what do we call that today?
Therapy.
Sensory integration,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So I would film when he had 10 words, maybe 10 to 20 at 3 years old. And he was in what they called a seriously emotionally disturbed class. He didn't receive his diagnosis until he was 6 because the DSM-4
Right.
was on the heel. That was in 2000. I'm sorry, 1994.
Got it.
Right. Okay, I'm old. The dates all kind of meld together.
I'm not good with numbers, so I'm
But
hopeless.
I was like this, finding my way,
Yeah.
in a world that I didn't have a name for it. I didn't have a label. I didn't have other people who said, yes, I get you. And so I used art.
Yeah.
And I filmed him. What does Taylor see? I never told him, Taylor looks mad. I would say, what does Taylor see? I presumed competence way back when because that was my instinct, not because that was like the tagline of the day.
Right.
And so that's what led to this multifaceted, universe that I live in now. That's why I do have my finger in so many pots because I couldn't settle on one when he was a kid. I had to try everything.
Yeah.
I had to be turning over rocks and seeing what was there and what worked and what didn't.
Amazing. And so so many things have come to fruition for you. I sometimes worry if I have more than 2 things going at one time, I'm like, oh, I'm not going to get anything done. But you have a knack for getting things done. And some of the things that you've gotten done, there are now 2, not 1, but 2 documentaries that you have made in conjunction with your son. Normal People Scare Me.
Actually 4.
There's 4. Okay.
Well,
See?
and 5 if you include the student film.
Okay. All right. Well, this is what I was saying about before. What I shared with her a little bit during the break. What I shared with you guys that I am intimidated in the best possible way, Keri.
Oh, back at you.
That I see what you're doing, and I just go, okay. Clearly, this woman has more energy than I do, but it excites me, and I think, okay, we can all do more things, and I love to see what you're doing because it inspires me. But let's talk first though about Real People Scare Me, and now Real People Scare Me too.
Okay, it's Normal People Scare Me, but you know what? No,
Real
that's
people.
good. That
All
Freudian
things scare-
that's a Freudian slip
I
that
did
works
that
for
earlier,
me.
too. I'm sorry.
Because really, it's unreal people scare me.
Yeah. Yeah.
But Normal People Scare Me. The original film was released in 2006. We created that over a period. We started in 2004. Okay. My son, really great tip for parents: get your kid involved in community service.
Yeah.
And back in the day, going back to the history that I set up when there was nothing, there was no social skill groups. I had to bring it to my community and tell regional centers what it was, right? Tell our providers what it was. I reasoned in my mind that if my son, who was very centric, very involved in his own, what he calls his own little world.
Right.
If he was doing community service and learning to give to others, that he would begin to look outward and to be socially connecting, like it or not, with others. And it worked. I started when he was 8 years old. And his birthday, Christmas Eve, I mentioned that. He came to me a couple of weeks before because we always adopted families less fortunate. And each year, starting at 8, he would we would basically say, okay, boy, girl toy. 12 years old. What would a 12-year-old like, Taylor?
Love it. That's great perspective taking.
And by the way, he wasn't in those early days able to access the answers.
Right.
He was very confused. It was a long process to the point where he was earning the money to buy the gifts, to go in and doing house chores, whatever, 12 years old, 13, etc.
Right.
To the point where he was now at 13, the year before this came up, he was choosing the gifts, choosing boys, girls, choosing the families, wrapping them, buying them, paying for them, and delivering them.
Wow.
3 years in, I said, we keep sending a box because we chose battered women as our target, right? And he kept for 3 years, he put the box in a box, and it was inanimate because it wasn't real to the literal mind.
Yes.
And so one year I called him up and I said, I know it's top secret there, but my kid has autism and I'd really like it if we could. So they invited us to a Christmas party.
Wow.
And my son was able to hand it off. So he's 14, turning 15. It's a couple weeks before Christmas. And he says, Mom, this year I want to pay for the gifts for myself. And I want to really take it on, but I want to earn money, in a different way. What can I do? And I said, well, you could clean the swimming pool. And perfect for a 14-year-old, soon to be 15. He went, I don't think so. I want to make videos and sell them.
Oh.
Now, remember, I'm a paralegal at this point. Motley Crue, was with them for 14 years, was our client. It was a crazy world. And so my literal mind is saying, you're a teenager, you haven't gone to film school, there's no money, we don't know how to make a film. So I told him he couldn't do it.
Yeah.
And I looked at his face, and he believed every word I said.
Devastating.
And in that moment, across my brain, and they said, you might never walk or talk. And look at, I get a little choked up because this is so personal to my son and the spirit of who he is.
Yeah.
Because Normal People Scare Me was his dream, his vision. Because he came to, I said, everything I said is a lie. I don't know how to make a film, but I will help you figure it out. What do you want to make it about? And this is again something for every person on any range of that spectrum, or with mental health issues, etc., is do what you know and do what you love. And so when I suggested autism, because he didn't know what he wanted to make a film about, he just loved, that was his perseveration. Film. So he came to me that night and said, I want to call it Normal People Scare Me.
Wow.
And the universe works in beautiful ways. A week later, we met Joey Travolta, who agreed to mentor him for the student film. That begat contacts from all over the world. I want to buy, your film. And we went on to make a feature film.
Amazing. Amazing.
And now, 10 years later, we did a retrospective. I have a gift for you today.
Oh, how exciting.
As I'm foraging through my suitcase here.
We love your suitcase. Oh, I'm so excited.
Normal People Scare Me too.
Amazing. Amazing. Thank you so much. I can't wait to see it. And I got to see little snippets as you were filming, and I kept hearing about it as you were filming. And I have to say, we were talking about this with the interview earlier today, that Keri is somebody who walks her talk, because not only did you make this film, but talk about the people who worked on the film and who they were, because the vast majority are individuals who were on the spectrum.
Taylor and I made a decision going into this, and Joey, of course, Joey began inclusion films after we released 10 years ago in 2006, Normal People Scare Me. He was teaching practical film school right next door to here to basically rich kids in the Valley.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with that.
Right.
There's nothing wrong with that. But he began to be inclusive of kids on the spectrum, and Inclusion Films was born.
Yeah.
And today it's a practical film school for adults. It's vendored by California's regional center system in Bakersfield. But guess who's coming to town? Yeah, we're excited about that. I can't give details, but it's been in the works, and it will be vendored by Tri-County.
Wow.
And it's an amazing practical film school. And so what we decided, Taylor, Joey, and I together, is that, one of the big issues in the world of autism today is futures.
Yeah.
And kids, whether they go to 18 or 22, they get to the top of that cliff. They either get a certificate of completion or a diploma, and then they virtually fall off the cliff.
Yeah.
There's no jobs, right?
Yeah.
I mean, relatively speaking.
Yeah.
And so they end up a lot of times in their parents on the couch playing video games. I mean, this is really common, right?
Yeah.
So we decided to, the future is now. That's my little tagline. The future is right now. So this film has 75% of the film crew was on the spectrum.
Which we love.
We have in this film the animation, the art, and the music compositions and the musical performances are created by people at about 70 to 75% as well.
Amazing.
And so this film is an inclusive production.
Yes.
it's not just a retrospective and Taylor interviewing dozens of individuals, kids and adults with autism. It is behind the scenes, these amazing people doing all the camera, lights, sound, boom.
Love it. Love it. So this is Normal People Scare Me Too. Where can people get, can they get Normal People Scare Me, and can they get this? Because this is just barely done, isn't it? It's barely new.
It came out at the very, very tip of the end of April.
Okay, yes.
And we went on a California road trip and screened it in 4 different places. Deborah Hosseini,
yes.
Now Musicar,
yes.
The Art of Autism. And we, all the way up to the Capitol, where we got like our marquee up there, The Art of Autism. And we gave Hearts and Arts Awards to quiet heroes in autism. And we had about, I would say, 400 people saw this. And so it has been out there for just a little while, and people can purchase it through my website right now. Which
and what's
is
your website?
www.normalfilms.com.
Okay, normalfilms.com. And can we get Normal People Scare Me, the first one, on there as well?
Absolutely.
Okay, I know a couple of people are going to be so excited that they'll be able to get that. For those of you who I know were already writing me saying where and when and how, that's how you can do that, normalfilms.com.